going on, everybody? What's happening? We're here for another week of the Opin Media Agency, marketing tactics. We are, a day late. It's about accountability. We're a day late, but trust me, we're not gonna fall short here today. Some things that you learn to try to make sure that everything kind of goes properly. When it comes to streaming and things of that nature, and we want to just make sure that we can do it right. We want to make sure that we can do our stream correctly and make sure that we can give you the best thing in the best situation possible. But today we are going to be talking about the very platform that we're here on today, right? And what it actually means. And we are going to talk about the future of live streaming, right? So everyone who is watching here, if you're watching live on Twitch and or YouTube, Facebook community will get to you guys very, very soon. Make sure that you guys are straight. But what we're going to do is make sure that we get you guys situated. And, when it comes to live streaming, essentially, it just really kind of shows how the future of video is so prominent, right? And the thing is, we're going to talk about how we kind of traveled from social media as a whole, and then it really kind of got really big into audio only podcasting, and then now it seems like video is really now starting to take off, and then now it's going to be the new it thing. All right, so what we're going to talk about today is the future of live streaming. And before we get started, let's just take a look at this dope ass intro video. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode, man. We are here and ready to go. Hoping you guys have a good time. Hope you guys having a great day. The one thing I love about live streaming, I definitely will say, is just the rawness of it all. If you guys were paying attention, you could definitely see how I was fighting with the mic stand. The mic stand was starting to go off the handle, and just want to make sure that that we're actually able to keep this thing going. But the show must go on. We're gonna keep rocking out, and we're just so glad that you guys are here with us today. All right, so again, here, my name is EA Green. I'm the owner and CEO of the Opin Media Agency. We're a full service marketing agency where we focus on virtual events, micro content, and lead generation. Again, I'm EA, and I got my producer, the maestro himself. I got Tony on the boards and on the switcher. What's up, Tony?
Doing today?
Hold on, one more time.
Yo, how's everybody doing today?
What's going on, Tony? I appreciate you for being here and making sure that we keep this thing really rocking out, and that we do what we need to do. All right, guys. Again, you can see I'm kind of really focused on making sure that this mic isn't going to go anywhere, but we're good. All right. So today we are talking about the future of live streaming. Again, if you're probably already here, you probably already know, right? You understand, the power in which live streaming can actually, kind of do. So what we, want to be able to talk about here today is to be able to talk about, kind of the journey so far, in terms of where we've been during the social media era. And then how live streaming, along with some global pandemic level events that take place in the world, how it really just kind of be the catalyst of something, right? To really kind of push us, kind of just push us ahead a couple of years. That if things were, as quote unquote normal, that we would have took a little while for us to get there. All right, but Tony, before we kind of get into everything, let everybody know a little bit more about yourself and what you do with the agency.
So I'm Tony. I am the creative director for the Opin Media Agency, and essentially what I do, I just specialize in storytelling content through video content.
Got you.
Yeah, stumbled on that one.
Listen, man, Tony is one of those people, like, we push each other, right?
Right.
Me and Tony, like, me and Tony first met, we were really, really big on just kind of like creating, right? And kind of being on the back end of the whole creative process, kind of being behind the scenes. And, there have been some clients that we've had that kind of forced me to kind of take a different approach when it came to how we were going to be interacting, and basically kind of made me the talent. I say that quote unquote, but essentially I had to figure it out. I had to know exactly what was going on and be able to actually host programming and stuff of that nature, and which kind of forced Tony to kind of like move up to the forefront to kind of fill in the shoes that I might have done when it comes to on the producing side or the creative side, right? And I kind of voluntold Tony to kind of be my producer for the Opin Media live stream, and want to make sure that he's mic'd up, and you guys can all kind of be a part of this whole process. All right, so Tony, before we kind of talk about the journey of live streaming, if you remember when we first started talking about live streaming, I was not a believer.
No, you aren't.
Like I refused. I refused to be into it. I refused. I kept saying it's only for gaming. I was kind of hating because we knew about like when I one of the funniest stories is like my last apartment. The internet was so sus, guys, that I couldn't play my PS4 and Call of Duty for like 2 years, like from at home. Like I would have to like bring my setup to the office and stuff, and it just wasn't a lot of time to be able to really do that. So I got rusty. So when I'm hearing, saying, yo, we got to be on Twitch and you got to do this and do that, I just kept saying like, nah, man, it's not. It's for, I had the whole thing like, it's for the people that, living at home, the basement and stuff like that. I will say I was a hater, and I want to apologize to Tony and to everybody here in the Twitch stream or the live streaming universe, because with him and with Jeff, our sales director, I have been a newly converted live stream enthusiast, and I'm just all for it, like all the way through. So
before you keep going, what changed you? What converted you?
So I think one of the biggest things that changed was that, there's one thing when you don't know what is happening because you're not in it, right? And you something exists, but you're just kind of like, oh, I don't know. Like, I know it got introduced with gaming, but then as I started paying attention to it and looking at it from like the branding perspective and the marketing perspective, like, we're in the business of selling FOMO. So I kept saying like, all right, there's a tension here. And I'm noticing, different brands and stuff like that starting to create a presence. And it wasn't necessarily about gaming. And I love gaming. Like, I'm all into it. I'm going to probably try to, stream a little bit of Call of Duty, a little bit of Warzone, among some other things, just to have fun with it. Like if I'm going to be playing, I might as well stream it. That's how I kind of look at it. But I think over the last couple of gigs that we've had, we had these different, things with one of the, largest like music streaming services in the world. We did something with them. We did some stuff where we streamed with, one of our return clients with Bank Shot Basketball, with the basketball tournament. And I just really kind of took a look into it, and I was like, you tripping. Like, this is dope. Like, and, there's a huge opportunity there because unfortunately there's not a lot of us on that platform. And it's, it's no shade or anything like that, but I mean, there's not a lot of black creatives, or it's hard to find black creatives on Twitch in particular. All right. And I just kind of liked where Twitch was going. And my hot take, if you will, is that Twitch is trying to make a play on YouTube, like in terms of like kind of taking over that space, because YouTube is not really meant, like it wasn't really built to be live first, if that makes sense. Like everything was more about just like, hey, you make this scripted video, you might do it on the fly, you might do it scripted, but think it out, record it, then post it. Where Twitch really kind of thought about like, hey, go live stream first and then take that stuff after the fact. And then I think we can talk about it a little bit more about some of the other stuff, of what I kind of saw and, how we kind of get into that.
Right.
But, yeah, so we, again, are going to talk about the future of live streaming. And I want to get into just like kind of what my understanding of like the history, right? And in terms of like how we got here. Like we're in 2021, there might be some EA facts, there'll be some stuff that I either made up or something that is, something I may have overstepped or overlooked, but this is just how my perspective is of it as we, started getting through, 2020 and 2021. So for me, when we look at, the early 2000s or the late 2000s, like kind of into the 07 to 2010, right? Facebook is already kind of like in its prime ish, right? They already started allowing people outside of high school to really kind of get onto the platform and things of that nature. And then you have Twitter, who kind of brings, people on. Like I remember I was on Twitter, like using text messages to like be able to tweet and to be able to read people's tweets. And that was a nasty time, but it is what it is. But, so I remember those things. And then Instagram kind of like really kind of changed the game. Right. So, you kind of hear about how when you are the first one up the hill, you catch that first arrow. Right. So you're the ones who's going to be making the mistakes. You're going to be trying new things, and people are going to see the opportunities that you lacked and then be able to try to like tack on to that. Right. And, Instagram really, I feel like kind of had like a strong foothold. And, of course, Facebook kind of got involved and, was able to grab them. And that really kind of changed the perspective, right? Because now that was the first time we've ever seen, social media within, the first decade of it existing. Like, there was an exit, there was, there's acquisitions, like people are, Facebook is starting to grab these different platforms. So it grabbed Instagram, grabbed WhatsApp, and, and then, start doing like all these other things like an Oculus and all that stuff. And, it was just one of those things like you just kind of see like, all right, like where is this thing going? Right. And as time goes on, you realize that when you are able to access these different platforms for free, you become the product. Right. And we kind of learn that through ads and things of that nature, and introducing ads to like the Facebook feed and Instagram feed and things of that nature. But the first early on thing that I really remember when it comes to live streaming was Periscope, right? And how Periscope was on basically by itself, and then Twitter purchased it. And that was kind of like the really early time, right? And to me, it made sense for Twitter because Twitter was kind of like the news of social media, in my opinion, right? It may not be the best source of your information, but that's the best way for you to get real-time information, based off of, Black Twitter and, funny things or, things that are unfolding in real time. Twitter was used to topple governments. Like it's wild how, that stuff, like the power of it all. And I can imagine like when you are able to essentially live stream your words, through Twitter, actually providing the video aspect of it would be a game changer. Right. And like of course YouTube was already existing and stuff like that. And, they kind of get into, creating live streaming and, going live and stuff of that nature. But just like social media in the earlier days, like you just don't know what it is yet. And when you don't know what it is, you know, it's a wild, wild west. People are just doing whatever they want, right? And basically, I'm actually curious. When did Twitch I guess, launch? Let's look at this. Twitch. All right, we are going to share my screen right here, guys. All right, so Twitch was launched 9 years ago, June 6, 2011. I could not tell you I could remember anything about that. Like the most, like, in my world, when it dealt with Twitch was, like, you know, when you have like my PS2, PS3, PS4, like, you seen that the app was available like on the platform, like, you know, on the actual device, and like you can go stream. So to me, it's like, all right, like, I'm not really that good to want to have someone watch me play. And this was something that I just kind of like swept under the rug. And, you know, more later, and, you know, as we started getting into when the Opin Media Agency kind of became a thing, you know, we started off as a podcast studio or as a media studio. You know, we realized, you know, we kind of like started getting into podcasting, right? Because honestly, we thought, you know, prior to the pandemic, you know, podcasting was that platform or that medium where you can listen to it and do something else, right? You can listen and go to work, and, you know, music was kind of getting kind of trash during that time. So it made more sense in order to actually be able to, really dabble into that space, right? And then as time goes along, you know, we as the agency decided to, like, we needed to be able to provide more capabilities at our space. So we decided to get into video. And one of the earlier things I felt like that we were able to really kind of tap into was that we kind of thought about the whole idea of, like, look, we don't want to get into cinematic video, right? That we actually want to be able to get into a place where it's just like, hey, if we can make the input as perfect as possible, it should prevent the amount of time that we have to worry about something in post, right? And it's not to say that we don't want to work on anything in post, but if we can limit our time that we use working in post, that will be more time that we can use to, like, get more people into the studio, right? Because, you know, ultimately, you know, as a startup, like, you got to be able to work in a way that's just kind of like efficient, you know. Like, I was a solopreneur at the moment, and I needed to make sure that, you know, all my time wasn't being wrapped up doing one particular task. And, you know, it's really early, so it's kind of hard to, like, you know, the idea of having a remote editor, you know, is not foreign, but it was something that wasn't in my idea range at that time. So fast forward a little bit, met my man Tony. What's going on, Tony? Let everybody know, well, you know, that you back here.
Yo, I'm still here.
Right. So, you know, we got Tony on board. You know, Tony essentially was the hidden gem of the agency. You know, was able to, you know, essentially literally do everything that I could do. All right. You know, and where I lacked in certain areas, you know, of course, my man Tony was able to pick it up, and I was able to teach him stuff too. Right. And, you know, learning more about video and learning more about how then be able to tap into the idea of, like, you know, my audio first background and stuff like that, we were able to really kind of create a space for ourselves where, like, yo, like, this is the way that we operate, and this is the way that we are going to, you know, be able to create content for ourselves and for other people, you know, getting into the micro content model and stuff like that. And I'm sure we'll be able to talk about that at a different time, you know, some other, you know, particular things that we can really kind of talk about with that. But you know, getting into that space, like, you know, we kind of now get to the pandemic, and now with the pandemic, you know, it realized that, you know, we can't be around people. You know, when we can't be around people, it causes you to be able to actually have to, like, innovate. And you can tell something was brewing because, Tony, if you remember, you know, early, you know, 2000, March, April, right, when you started needing all these different things in order to be able to, like, work from home and work remote, like, a lot of the good stuff that we kind of, liked, like, the stream decks and the roadcasters and, pod mics and stuff like that, they were gone. Right. And I just felt like that was like, if you weren't paying attention, there's a reason why. It's like, why are people who never worked from home or anything of that nature, people who never worked from home, like, why are they now grabbing these prosumer, like, or the higher end type of stuff? And come to find out, it's because everybody was trying to live stream, like, in my opinion.
Of course.
So, getting into the pandemic, you see people, starting to, live stream a little bit more, be able to do their own, introducing podcasting from home or vlogging from home, because people are now taking the time out, like, hey, now I'm home, I need to try it out, try to figure out what that new thing is. The new thing that I'm gonna like, that new talent I'm gonna try to work on, or something of that nature. And you kind of like see that as like a way, like, okay, people are now starting to get into this virtual production space, and they need to figure out how to work on something and how to do it fast. And unfortunately, that really brought us into the next section where that I kind of want to talk about is the difference between live streaming and essentially conferencing, like, video conferencing. My man Tony, like, you know how much that I kind of dislike some of these video conferencing platforms, and why people use it when it comes to like production.
We won't name drop.
Unless they came out and said, yo, you know what, like, we want you to like help us out and do stuff, like, I don't want to burn any bridges before we get there. But again, when people try to innovate, like, they see what's out there and see what does exactly what they needed to do as quickly as possible, and they just go for it. And unfortunately, a lot of these video conferencing apps were the solution to go. And they try to adapt by allowing people to be able to connect to like their YouTube or to their Facebook and things of that nature to quote unquote live stream. But everyone here on the live streaming community, like, you guys understand that, like, you guys understand the importance of production value, and understanding the production, the importance of production value really puts you into a place where you really don't take certain things for granted, and you want to make sure that everything on the input side is as perfect as possible. That that every single element, it plays such a part in terms of how things really kind of take off, right? Such as the cameras that you use, the lighting that you use, the laptops, and audio, everything, right? And including like even design, like studio design. So as right now, you see this is a work in progress. We got our top shelf, kind of ready to go, and we kind of have our cubby of wonder right here. So you're going to start seeing some stuff being added in there over the next couple of weeks. But if you guys have a suggestion of what should go in these cubbies, right, and it really intrigues me, like, hey, we're going to do it. But like, this is one of those things, like, the show must go on, and want to make sure that we are able to kind of like put that best foot forward.
Let's reset the room real quick. Let's introduce, kind of do like a soft introduction, because we got some people joining in right now.
What's going on, everybody? My name is EA Green. I am the CEO and owner of the Opin Media Agency. That mysterious voice that you heard in the background is the maestro, Tony.
Yo.
Right, Tony is our creative director here at the Opin Media Agency. Hope you guys, I'm going to leave my water here. Hopefully I don't show any brands and stuff like that. So where's everybody coming in from? Is anybody want to hear the chat? Come holler at us. I see Get Your Res is on here on the check-in. What's going on? We appreciate you. All right, but yeah, so as of right now, what we've been talking about, the future of live streaming, and where we kind of talked about so far is where, from my perspective, where the journey has taken us over the last decade or so. Right, we started off talking about how, with Facebook and things of that nature, how we were able to, kind of see like some of the early onset versions of of, live streaming when it came to like Periscope and, when YouTube introduced live streaming, and how that was kind of like the wild, wild west. But how actually the pandemic, starting from the end of 2019, early 2020, right, has really kind of been the catalyst to like really kind of push live streaming to the forefront, right? And knowing that we saw that Twitch, one of the biggest platforms or the main platforms, like started in 2011, man, they were kind of ahead of the game. They were kind of looking way ahead, and they saw something that no one else saw, right? And it's one of those things like you actually got to kind of appreciate that type of stuff, because that could have gotten like super, essentially they could have crashed the burn. Like, there's other, there was other streaming, platforms, not necessarily for live streaming, but other streaming platforms that have been born and crashed and burned way, way quicker than anything else. But now with, again, with Twitch and with live streaming, like we're starting to see a new medium really starting to show, because people are interested, and I, we say this all the time, but like people are nosy. Like I'm nosy. Like I want to know, like if you say something that, catches my eye, like I can invest myself to like follow you along on the journey. And I want to learn a little bit more about it and how we can get involved too. But
so before you keep going, I do want to backtrack to something you said earlier.
Okay.
As far as during the pandemic, we did see that a lot of the equipment was bought out. Mm-hmm. And so I'm reading this article from The Verge, and between March and April, the hours watched from live streams went up by 50%. And after a year of being in the pandemic, it's went up 101%.
I mean, there's a lot of people home. I mean, and the thing is, you can't even say like technically home, because I mean, we know about y'all sneaky links. We know what y'all been up to. But I mean, I've been in situations, I necessarily haven't been home, and I found myself like looking on my phone, like watching streams and stuff like that. And I am not surprised, because when it comes down to it, with the pandemic early, like if you think about it, like let me put it in perspective, and I'm just using like myself as like a real life, like a real life example, right? March was our best month ever, right? We're a little under 2 years old, had the best month possible. Like we were super busy, had tons of different clients that we did work with, and what I realized is that now we are at the end of April. And I am just now catching up to like make sure that we are now like fully like looking full steam ahead. We're caught up on everything, all our projects, all our loose ends, and now we can actually start focusing like future forward when it comes to these different projects that we have, right? So imagine, I'm saying that with just a busy month, but imagine a whole industry like the movie industry, and they get held up for a year. Right, where millions, maybe billions, hundreds of millions of dollars of production time and things that take place gets halted because now people can't make content, right? And then essentially what that kind of did, like you've seen, like there was some like downstream like consequences of that, right? Because we all know Netflix gives us our binging flicks, fix of like content and stuff like that, but if I don't know about you, Tony, but I remember when it first started, we watched everything.
Oh yeah,
right. Like me and my fiance, like, we watched everything that was on Netflix, because we all thought we were gonna be in the house for 2 weeks.
Rewatch things,
right? Rewatch stuff, and maybe found some stuff that something that was on that list for a long time. You went back and you found it, right? So like imagine, that 2 weeks that we're supposed to be in the house turns into the 3 months, right? And you start realizing like, all right, like I'm home still, or I'm in that restrictive type of area. Like you're gonna start looking for other things, right? So some people went to games, some people started doing podcasts, some people did arts and crafts. Who knows? Like I also want to see like how many people essentially like became entrepreneurs after the fact, or like all these different, or what new skills that people learn. Like I wish that we can kind of figure out like to quantify it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think naturally you find, since people are home, right, and they're not necessarily in that space where they're like, I am working and need to listen, right? Because if you're working from home, you know, you can have that TV on now, you know, while you doing that work on your work computer. So why not have something that is fresh and new? And that's, you know, following somebody, you know, as they play your favorite game on Twitch, or that YouTube, you know, that streamer that is, you know, doing, you know, unboxing, or someone who's just having a regular conversation. And I just feel like that naturally kind of happens, and I can definitely see how we kind of got to that point. And to be honest, I'm quite surprised that it was so low, if that makes sense. Like, I would have thought it would have been like double, like maybe like 200%.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe there was a lot of people already already into it and stuff like that.
Well, that was just for live streams. Like, you still gotta keep in count that the streaming services that aren't live, like Netflix and Hulu, like those went up significantly.
Right. Yeah, I can't. You know, we know. I can't remember what the platform was called. The one that lost $6 billion in, was it $2 billion in 6 months? Yeah, that's what it was. Let's see. Let's take a look. I'm gonna find this thing real fast. All right. The platform lost $2 billion in 6 months. Where we at? What's it called? Quibi. That's what it's called. Do you remember Quibi?
No, I don't.
Have you heard about Quibi?
I think I've heard the name. I don't know what Quibi is.
So Quibi was a video streaming platform that was supposed to rival Netflix and, you know, Hulu and everyone else, right? And they focused on creating content that was bite-sized in nature, that was like 10 minutes or less, right? So you essentially would go through a whole season of a show, like, and basically you can get through the whole season in an hour because each episode was built for 10 minutes, right? And essentially, like, they broke up movies through the 10-minute piece and stuff like that. So I watched some. I didn't, I was able to get a free because, again, the content kind of went, and we needed something else to watch, and like, it made the binging thing even worse than what it was, than it was with Netflix, because you can literally sit there and watch, the 10 to 13 episodes in, within a couple hours,
right? And
it'd be good, and you'd be like, oh, that was, it's pretty dope.
So what was the downfall? Did they not have enough content?
They spent too much money too fast. In my opinion, I felt like what would have worked for them would have went the Vivo route. If you think about it, do you remember, like, Vivo is on YouTube, and I felt like that they would have been pretty cool if they would have took their, instead of hosting it themselves, like making the content and then putting it on these different platforms and making money off of the actual ads. I think that would have, like, changed the game for them. That would have been super, super dope. But let's see. We'll see what else. If you guys are in the chat, I appreciate you guys for coming through. If you have any questions or anything that you kind of want to talk about, when it comes to the future of live streaming, come holler at us. Let's see what's going on. Again, my name is EA. I'm the owner of and CEO of the Opin Media Agency. We got Tony on the boards or on the switcher, right? He's in the background. Again, I call him the maestro, man, because he's a teacher, man, like, for real, when it comes to everything. All right. So I'm looking at my notes here. Of course, we kind of talk about, how things kind of change. And I want to talk about, live streaming in particular, when it comes to essentially, like, the culture, right? Like, you hear people say stuff like that, like the culture, all the time. And, and it's a real thing where, you have, like, essential like general pop culture, but there are little small facets that you kind of see trying to figure out how to maneuver in spaces. And, Twitch actually kind of opened it up because they were that saving grace, right? In particular, when it came to the pandemic, DJs were at like a ultimate like kind of like uphill battle, right? Because we know when it comes to going live and things of that nature, or you try to use music that isn't yours on any platform, almost all the major platforms have issues, and they have algorithms that find the music and then ping you to say, hey, like you can't use this, right? Because you don't own it, right? They've done better by not trying to like actually give you strikes or anything of that nature, because if they were to give you some strikes, like, you know, a lot of people would be off these platforms by now, right? And, you know, now we're in a place where, you know, most times they identify it and they just say, you know what, it's cool, like we know that it's not yours, and now we're gonna just kind of bring you on, you know, we're just gonna at least show the credit to the real person, right? And what I noticed, especially in the beginning of the pandemic, was that, you know, a lot of DJs were trying to, you know, give us joy, right? They were trying to give us joy because like you can't go to the clubs and things of that nature, so they took to the digital airwaves, right? They took to, you know, these different platforms. And I remember being on plenty of Instagram lives, on plenty of Facebook lives with all these different DJs, and you had to hope that they didn't get clipped. You had to hope that they would have been able to spin long enough so that you can get your, you know, nice little fix, and, you know, they could just continue to go and not really have an issue. And what I noticed after a couple of months of people keep trying to like really make something happen on, you know, the main, like I guess the big three, right? So you got your Instagram, Facebook, and your Twitters, right? They basically got off of there and went to Twitch, because Twitch realized that, hey, we know that you don't own it, and we know that you're just trying to, you know, this is a craft of yours, right? This is a creative outlet for you, and we know that you're not trying to steal someone's music. You're just basically showing off a skill, all right? And I feel like they did the perfect thing in terms of letting people live stream the stuff, but then when it came to saving the content, that's when they kind of got involved and said, hey, you can't, you know, save it for people to like replay it, because that's the part that you don't own, right? Because you can essentially make money off of, you know, your restreams and things of that nature. All right. So
we actually have a question in the chat from Rez. She asks, what's the best kind of content to live stream?
All right. So we're going to get back to the other piece about DJs in a minute, but we're going to go over this question. And again, you said okay, I see it here. All right. So from Get You a Rez, what is the best kind of content to live stream? All right. So I think the simple answer to that is whatever you're into, right? If you just stream something that you enjoy doing rather than doing something that will get people's attention, right, you will find that community, right? And by being able to create that community, like I kind of look at it as like, you know, there's always a flavor out there for someone, well, no matter what kind of content you actually trying to get into. But if you have something that you can do or talk about inside and out, you know, on hours on end, and you can do it for free because you either just, you know, either play a game or paint nails or do hair or whatever, you might as well just do it while like live streaming, and, you know, maybe talk to, you know, find different people who kind of fit within that space and that actually want to learn from you in real time or things of that nature, find out where they're at and just be able to talk about that type of content, right? So yeah, Tony, let me ask you, I know you started live streaming way before I did, right? So what made you get into live streaming?
So I got into live streaming to inspire other Black creators, I'm gonna say.
Okay.
I've been on Twitch for a while, and I have never been able to find any Black content creators.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those things where I would like to build a community where I can inspire other Black content creators to start live streaming. And that goes for photographers, videographers, whatever hustle or passion you have. I just feel like there's enough out there for all of us. especially just kind of seeing like the different communities built on Twitch. I do think, like you said, there's a flavor for everybody.
Okay. So essentially, you feel like that in any creative outlet, that type of, like, in terms of content creation that way. So they can be, you said, a shooter. They can be an editor. They can be a director. They can be a writer. And
not even on the creative side. Like, even on the gaming side, there's not too many. Of course, I like gaming. That's not something I really care to stream. I like to watch it, but at the same time, there's not a lot of black creators or black people that live stream in general.
Right. And why do you think that is?
I don't want to generalize us.
That's fine.
But in general, I do think we are more content consumers rather than creators.
Okay, that's fair.
So we kind of spend a lot of time. I don't want to necessarily say like we put ourselves in boxes, but at the same time, it just goes into a lot of the things we see online, and you just don't see a lot of it. So I mean, what makes you want to get in that space if you don't see a lot of people like you doing it?
No, I understand. So the thing is, let's kind of keep it in that same vein when you talk about, the journey of like black creatives and, being in these different spaces, right? We see, like, we know that, 9 times out of 10, a platform really takes off because typically of a black creative that's within that space, right? Like, essentially we make it cool, so Twitter has black Twitter, right? That no one can seem to find, but we all know that it exists, right? Because black Twitter is not a place, but it just is, right? And especially if you were, on Twitter in the earlier days, like, it was a lot easier for you to find, but like, that stuff kind of exists, right? We know before Vine kind of went away, like, Vine really took off because a lot of like the Vine comedians, right? The Instagram comedians and stuff of that nature, like that short form stuff, and not to say that it was only black people, but like there was some of the more prominent people that you've seen that kind of hit, hit in these new spaces, kind of took their, kind of got started off of stuff like Vine and Periscope or Twitter in the earlier days, or even Instagram, right? And of course, you just kind of see that stuff like over and over again. But I guess what would make live streaming different? Because we kind of see like, we go on these different platforms and, we'll create some dope stuff. And then, we see there seems to always kind of be like this underlying factor of, not necessarily like, systematic like issues, right? In terms of like people recreating black creatives content and then that taking off way more than the original person itself. Like, can you see live streaming being a little bit different and allowing people to kind of actually be able to make a living or like actually like thrive within those spaces?
I think as long as your first, well, maybe not even your first, but maybe if you kind of move based on wanting to build a community or help people out in general and not necessarily focus it all on you, I feel like that in the live streaming space makes you great automatically. Because you have, kind of like you said, you have like a lot of people already kind of focusing on like me, rather than like, there's a lot of big live streamers who have built communities where like they've actually changed people's lives just by like just streaming a game. It's like, I don't want to name any names, but of course I was on stream yesterday. Somebody had somebody comment, was like, yo, you don't understand like how much I watch you when I have stuff going on.
Right.
And like he called him out. He was like, yo, like this is why I do it.
Right.
He was like, this is exactly why, because it's like, I understand we all going through stuff, but it's like everybody kind of sort of needs to escape and also people to listen. But it's like if you can build a community based off of your passion or what you do, I feel like you already have a leg up on a lot of just creators in the live stream space.
Nah, I mean, that's fire. Yo, come on, man. We got to give you We gotta, give my man Tony a round of applause for that, man. That's fire. Cause like I mean, cause I feel like we kind of understand that, right? In terms of like, I think it's maybe not something that we call out because we're kind of too close into it, right? But you do notice like in live streaming in general, there is this whole aspect of community building, right? And particularly with Twitch, like you see, or live streaming in general, like you see, like it's normally accompanied by Discord, right? Where now you have a place where you can, house these people and be able to, talk with them and be able to incorporate the capabilities of the platform in order to supplement or to add to your elements on live streaming or any particular place, right? Because it's like, hey, like this is our close-knit community that I can keep right here on my phone.
Exactly.
Right. And then being able to, essentially, if you have a group of creators or a group of people in general, now you got verification, right? So that if I do come up with something that's fire and then someone tries to take it, I have, hundreds or thousands of people that know that it was me and we've celebrated each other, or we've built enough community where we're like, yo, like we don't play that. Like we take care of our own and we kind of move forward to make sure that we are kind of in that good space.
Right.
It's fire. That's fire. All right. So should we reset?
Yeah. Go ahead. All
right. Where we at? We on one? We on one?
Yep.
All right, cool. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's EA Green. I'm the CEO and founder of Opin Media Agency, the full service marketing agency focusing on virtual events, micro content, and lead generation. Again, I'm your host for today. We're talking about marketing topics and tips every single week, right? And I got my main man Tony on the boards, on the switcher. And today we decided to talk about the future of live streaming. And essentially, we started off by where we kind of get started, and then how we kind of got to where we're at. And then now, before we kind of wrap up, we're going to go more into looking forward and how we see things kind of changing for the future.
With that being said, I have a question for you. Okay?
Sure.
So, actually, let's do a two-part question. How much have you been watching content during the pandemic? Like, how has it increased for you?
Okay. So what I want to do, I want to take a moment to think about it, right?
Gotcha.
Because I felt like I was about to lie and say I didn't and that it didn't go up, right? But what I want to do is that I want to just take a quick break, right? And then we're going to come back and we're going to go through those questions, all right? All right, guys. We'll catch you in a second. What's going on, everybody? We are back. Just needed to take a quick break. I talk a lot and I needed some water. All right, but before we left for a little small break, Tony asked a great question, but Tony, I'm gonna let you kind of set us up again, and then we can kind of get into that.
Gotcha. So of course we know that the content consumption increased during the pandemic. I just wanted to ask you
about 100%, right?
Yeah.
No, at least
Right.
for live streaming.
Well,
right?
for live streaming, it was 101%.
So we can only assume that
for
video content as a whole,
probably
consumption.
maybe 10x,
All right, gotcha.
at least.
Right.
But how much has it increased for you? Like, do you find yourself still to this day? Well, we're not outside yet, but
Right. We're not outside yet, but all right. So over the last year and change, I will say that my video consumption has gone up, right? And I would not say that it went up astronomically, because I kind of took some of that, took a lot of that time to like really kind of like dive in a mile deep into the business, right? So, of course, when when certain things take up your time, other things lack, right? So you remember, like, I found myself like missing out on big moments on like social media and stuff like that, because like I was like kind of like taking that away, but I caught myself watching more YouTube videos, right? I got my master's degree from YouTube University, and can have my continuing education from YouTube University as well, right? When it comes to any new tactics or things of that nature. So I definitely caught myself watching more I guess more content by like individual creators and not necessarily by big studios, right? Because especially in the beginning, I went through the whole binge process. Like, we binged everything, when we were working from home. If you didn't already have that clientele in your books already, it may have been a little difficult for you to find new stuff, primarily because, believe it or not, I feel like when everybody worked from home in the beginning, no one was prepared to have call forwarding to their house or to their cell phone, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. So any business that was closed, like, hey, like, no one's answering the phone if you're doing cold calling, because everybody's home. And, if they didn't have an email already set out, like, how are you going to get in contact with them? You know what I mean? So what it really kind of, serves you up to do is to really kind of live on a lot of these social media platforms where you are now consuming more content, because now this is the main way that I can promote myself, promote the business, right? By creating content to show off what we do and show what we can, what we've been able to accomplish, to make sure that we can stay top of mind, right? So I definitely saw myself, consuming way more, but stuff that was more directly tied to self-improvement, in terms of my business tactics, in terms of my, the skill sets that we have, and so forth. And of course, that really kind of, gave us the alley-oop to get into virtual event production.
Right.
So, being, consuming content to learn about these different platforms, to try these different things out, so that we can move with the times, not necessarily move with the times, but like be able to adapt to what was necessary. Because now, essentially there's a new norm. Like, once we got into that, month 2, month 3 type of thing, I'm like, oh, like, this is going to take a long time. And, that's just kind of where we kind of got placed to now.
So I know we talked about what live streaming is, but I don't think we really hit on what are the platforms to live stream on, and which one would be best for anybody who's watching this. Okay.
All right. So, correct me if I miss anything. All right. So I'm just going to kind of go from, I guess, the easiest way to go live stream to the most difficult. Right. So, first you got like your mobile first apps, right? So you have your Facebook lives, you have your YouTube live, you have your Instagram live, where a lot of those things, more, YouTube is kind of like hybrid in the sense of, being able to kind of, or in Periscope, be able to like have your phone out, you're walking around and you're, essentially, kind of like, videotaping yourself like mobily, right? And then, YouTube allowed you to get into doing it mobile, or, being able to start doing it from like a desktop or a laptop or stuff like that, right? And then, one of the big misconceptions I want to make sure that I kind of tap into right, is that after you have YouTube, right, there are people who are going to say things like the StreamYards of the world or the OBS and things of that nature. Like, what people have to realize that those tools are just like sandboxes, right, and not necessarily like platforms, right? They're going to be kind of like the bow and casing to make sure that it looks great, but not necessarily where it actually lives, right? So then after you have like the big three, and essentially being Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and then Periscope, right? You actually notice that LinkedIn got into going live too, right? And they realized they were a little behind the ball for a long time, and they decided to really kind of get into that live streaming space, where more on the professional side, where you can start creating more content that's probably something like this, right? Won't be a bad idea if we decided to multicast onto live stream, to live stream on LinkedIn too, because of the nature of the content, right? And then again, you got the overlord of I feel like of live streaming. You got Twitch, right? And again, when you make a platform and you do it for like, when you build it to be live streaming first, like you take, like you can see that there's like more thought into it, right? Where it's just not like, hey, I noticed the other guys are doing it and now I'm going to do it too. And I feel like that's where a lot of the big three really kind of got into it. It was just like, hey, I'm noticing this is now catching a lot of people's attention, so I'm going to do it too, right? And and again, of course, how can I forget? You can live stream on TikTok, right, as well. And I don't believe you can do it on Snap, if I remember correctly. Like, I think Snap right now is just still just like kind of like that, stories and stuff like that. What else? But I think, like, as off the top of my head, that's where we're kind of at, right? And when depending on the scenario of the use case of what you're trying to do, I think that determines which platform probably works the best for you. All right, so if you, let's say, are starting from scratch and you do not have any particular, you don't have any particular, I guess people that you kind of work with or anything like that, like going on to a place where there's the most attention probably makes the most sense, right? So I do see where a lot of people might stick to the Facebook and Instagram, because that's where the majority of their space is. But depending on what you're talking about, that might not be the best place, right? Because I feel like there are, not necessarily negative connotations about the different platforms, but it's kind of like it's not refined, right? There's no way for you to be able to search or to be able to kind of like comb through the different types of live streams and stuff like that on those, the big three platforms. So that's why I feel like it's a little bit more messy, because you have to actually already have the super engaged demographic and like community to really kind of thrive on those platforms, right? And if you are able to, what I'll probably say, if you are just trying to like get more people to like learn more about your business or your brand and stuff like that, it's perfect. If you have any of the content that really kind of gets into like the education space or things of that nature, or you need to kind of provide more content to be able to document over a longer period of time, I would probably say YouTube, right? Because you can create your different videos on YouTube, right, to document processes or your journey and stuff of that nature, and then be able to incorporate live streaming periodically in order to engage that audience, right, to kind of keep things fresh, right? And you see that they kind of do something very similar to that, but doesn't have any face on there when you schedule your videos to be a premiere, right? And you see that on YouTube and on Facebook, where you schedule as a premiere, you can essentially live stream like your words, right? Because you're watching with everybody else and you're able to kind of get people excited about it, right? And I'm sure if you kind of do that, that can help you kind of trigger the algorithm and stuff of that nature. I feel like if you have a pretty stationary setup and you want to be able to kind of just make your own thing, if you're like in the pioneering space, right, and you just want to kind of make your own, I feel like Twitch might be the way to go, right? Because until the other major platforms are able to find a way for you to be search friendly, I think Twitch is the way to go, right? Because they add all these other elements to live streaming on Twitch in order to be able to kind of like take over, right? And particularly one thing we talked about, building community is creating raids, right? In terms of when you raid on Twitch, you can take your viewers from from your particular stream and then be able to go to someone else's stream, right? And then now, like, that simple notion of bringing over your community over to a new community kind of allows you to kind of say, hey, I want you to now come into mine as well, right? Because I'm sharing the love, right? And this is something that I might be interested in, and that it's kind of like I'm trying to remember. There was a game that I used to play at this camp way long ago, where it's like everybody plays rock paper scissors, right? And if you beat that person now has to go with your crew, right? Everybody who you beat has to applaud you, like kind of keep applauding,
kind of hype you up,
hyping you up and stuff like that until you're the last person standing. So I feel like that's what like that raid system kind of like really kind of takes on. All right, so before we wrap up, I kind of look at the chat real fast. All right, so we did talk about what was the best kind of content to live stream, and all right, so Get Your Res says that Snap died a lot after the Rihanna situation. So if I remember correctly, I'm trying to remember I remember the aftermath, but I don't really recall what happened with this. So actually, now that you have me intrigued, Rez, I'm gonna actually go try to find this out. Snapchat and Rihanna. Let's see. So basically, Rihanna protests ad on Snapchat that mocks domestic violence. Yes, I do remember this. Right, and wow. Okay, here we go. So nowhere near do we I want to be serious on this one. Take the music off. Can we go right here on two? No way near do we ever condone domestic violence in any way, shape, or form. Right. I just want to take a look at this just to kind of talk about in the context of why did Snapchat kind of have like a huge blowback based off something that took place on their platform. All right. So what we have here is that we have an article with the New York Times that showed how Rihanna basically kind of gave them the death wish, man. They gave them, kind of took them out of here. Right. And unfortunately, they were saying, would you rather be slapped by Rihanna or punch Chris Brown? And yeah, it's really tasteless, man. Like, that was really, really, really bad. And I can't, and the thing is, that really kind of, you let, someone approved that. Someone approved that, being able to get off. But it's kind of wild how, the news was able to they found that ad, and it was clip, it screenshotted that whole thing. And then, that's where it kind of fell into. Wow. All right, so let's kind of shake that off, guys. All right, so now we're going to kind of get into the, final piece. We've been here for a little bit, had a great time here today. Again, I'm just going to, reset one final time, and then we'll, start wrapping up. All right, so we discussed the future of live streaming here today. And we discussed, where we were to where we're going, right? And kind of how we got here today. And then essentially, again, I want to kind of talk about the future now, right? So, we discussed about how everyone's consumption of videos and live streaming has gone up over the last year or so. But now we are now at a place where, when it comes to COVID-19, different vaccinations have been, made available to the public. And now we're going to start being able to get to our new normal. And that really kind of begs to answer the question, what now when it comes to live streaming. And I don't say call it a hot take or anything of that nature, but I believe that the majority that we might see a small downtick for a moment, but then not to say that it's going to be, you know, another pandemic or anything like of that nature. I think that people are going to, yes, be excited that you can go outside for a moment, but people are going to they picked up new habits. And now I feel like it's going to be very, very difficult for people to let those things go, because those are things that kind of like help find you peace over the last year or so. And I dare to say that I think that we will continue to see the uptick over time, right? And again, I feel like that the pandemic really kind of like fast forwarded like basically what was already taking place, right? So I felt like there was a, you know, for me, like I disliked live streaming, period, no matter what platform, primarily because of the loss of production value. But now we're starting to see different, you know, innovations and technology that allow you to be able to kind of create your own production studio on the fly, or to be able to create what you need on the drop of a dime. All you really need is a solid background and a good internet connection, and you can get rocking, right? And I don't see people unlearning that. I don't see that stuff changing anytime soon. I think we're going to find a way where, you know, hybrid is now going to be the thing, right? And I think where we saw, you know, going into the pandemic, how audio only podcasting was starting to take off, I think we're going to start seeing those people who are into that space start to migrate over into video as well. And they're going to find ways to live stream their content in order to be able to add that user generated feel and that generated element that allows you to kind of feed off an audience or a community that you've built, and be able to, you know, provide that flavor for everybody, you know, that's out there. And I'm willing to put some money onto that, man. I don't really got that much, but we're gonna figure it out. But I definitely, I don't see it happening. Like, I see you might have a downtick, but I don't see people abandoning it. Like, there's no way. Like, it's too much has happened, and, you know, like, I just feel like people are creatures of habit, and, you know, yeah, I think maybe next summer you're gonna see like a huge uptick of like kind of like a lot of like movies and things, or you know, different types of content that's gonna kind of be going back to normal. So there might, you know, people gonna be fighting for attention, but the idea of you've, you know, met somebody online, and, you know, this is internet friends that I've met over the last year and stuff like that. So I can't imagine that, you know, with things like Clubhouse and all these other things, like I can't imagine that people are just gonna abandon it. Like, that's just not, like, it's just not, I cannot like compute that at all. Like, to me, it just feels like there's no way. There's no way. What do you think, Tony?
I agree. I do want you to kind of hit on, I think you kind of getting there, but I want you to hit on just how much content comes from a live stream, because you know that we are consuming content like at a higher rate than usual.
Right.
So now, how do we take these live streams and also be able to reproduce it for other platforms?
Okay. I think I'm following where you're at. All right. So basically, if I'm, and, you know, correct me if I'm wrong. So basically, the way that we're kind of looking at this is that when it comes to live streaming, right, there's a ton of useful content, right? And in the context of what we do, right, and in terms of the agency, how we can, you know, make micro content and stuff of that nature, right? So let's go to 2. I feel like I'm in the zone right for this. All right. So when it comes to, you know, how we kind of do things, and we, you know, quick to share, and it's not something that we created, but we feel like we do really, really well in our execution of it. When it comes to the micro content model, and essentially, the micro content model is kind of like almost like a pyramid, right? And at the very, very top of this pyramid is what we kind of call your basically your pillar content, right? Like, so the content that basically is going to be the foundation of everything else that kind of takes place thereafter. So when the way that we kind of approach this, right, is that we just need an hour worth of video, right? And that hour worth of video can take place however. You can use DSLR cameras like the ones that we kind of have here and, you know, our main shot here. Or if you have a webcam or anything, right, you can essentially create an hour worth of video talking about whatever you want to talk about. And then essentially you can now break that content down into smaller pieces, you know, and that can be repurposed on, you know, the websites that you have, like here, like if we're on Twitch and on YouTube, or when you are going to take those things and then like repurpose them and place them on, say, Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, right? So I definitely see, like, you know, what live streaming does is that this is almost kind of like the perfect harmony of what we were looking for about being able to make sure that the input is as perfect as possible, right? So that we can prevent a lot of work from happening in post, right? And when I say post, meaning post-production, right? So, you know, after you film, you know, in the conventional way, like you film your segments, then you you know, edit all those things to be able to add those different elements to kind of make the perfect end product and then push it back out. But, you know, with here, let's go back to A, just to kind of look at it again, is that when you have your set, right? So we got our lighting, we got our props, we have our sound, our cameras and things of that nature to make sure that we have everything that we need, right? We're able to be in a space where it's like, hey, like my sound sounds good, my lighting is good, my cameras are good. Now let's try to actually complete the task, right? Talking about, like, for instance, the future of live streaming, and let's try to do it on one take, right? If you know, we have our intro video already done, right? So, you know, you guys seen that intro video, so we're able to insert that intro video to make sure that takes place. If we need to take a break, we have our, you know, we call it our Be Right Back commercial, right? We got that stuff done, right? If you have ads, like, you're now taking a lot of the things that you would do in post and making sure that you kind of have those things already done so you can insert them to essentially live produce as time goes on, right? So for us, you know, it makes more sense where I have a producer, which is Tony, right, where he is, you know, kind of managing our cameras and stuff of that nature. It would be a little bit much, you know, a little much for me to be able to have multiple cameras and the stream deck, just to kind of show you what this is right here. Let's go to 2, right? So our stream deck here, right, which then allows us to be able to kind of show, you know, like these different macros and be able to take us into different scenes, like, you know, going from here to our main stage type of thing, or we kind of go back in, you know, and over time, of course, we'll be adding, you know, more elements in there and adding more elements to kind of really create a situation that really is beneficial for the platforms that we want to stream to, right? But now we're able to actually be able to create, like, again, have that harmonious, like, way to be able to say, we have an idea, we want to complete it, and we want to make sure that the input is as crisp and as perfect as possible, so that we can focus on the main portion that we're really, really great at, and that's creating micro content to get people excited about the bigger stream, right? And again, when I talk about how I said earlier, how live, like Twitch in particular, has really kind of, like, they did things correctly in my opinion, because they realize what people actually use the platform for, and they understand the game of, like, grabbing attention. And particularly, you know, we talked about how you can raid and stuff like that, but also the idea of being able to clip your live stream on the fly is unnatural. Like, that is the most, like, ingenious thing that anyone has ever, in my opinion, can ever do. Because how simple is it where if you say something super, super dope, like, you know, we kind of talking about what clipping is, right? We can actually just press a single button on Twitch and create a clip for the last 30 seconds. Like, that is essentially, like, it's going to make it hard. You know, they're trying to make, you know, our job a little hard for us. Right, Tony? right? Be able to be able to kind of do those things on the fly. But of course, there's other things that are involved that would just kind of really kind of change the game. So I'm not really too worried about that because let's go to 2 because we're the best at what we do, and the Open Media Agency is here for you. So if you want to learn more about us and learn more about what we do, you can definitely go to the openmediaagency.com. You can go follow us on Instagram at openmedia.agency, Facebook at openmedia.agency, or Twitter at openmediaagency. All right, so that is up for me today. Tony, before we go, do you got anything else for me?
Yeah, I do actually have some. I just want to say shout out to your barber.
Yo, listen.
Shout out to your barber.
So, shout out to Ant the barber. Right, we're here in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It is very, very difficult to get on this man's calendar, and you know what I'm saying. You make me look this good, man. That's the least I can do is give you a shout out. I'm gonna send you this later. All right. So again, that is what we have here for today, and I want to thank you guys. I want to give you guys a round of applause. All right, guys. I want to appreciate you for what you guys being able to follow us here today for our open media marketing tips. Again, we feel like that name is a little generic, working title, right? So if you guys have any suggestions, we're open to it, right? And if you give us something that we really, really love, we're gonna shout you out to it and we actually might give you a prize. So yeah, I'll say it here first. Yeah, if you can come up with a super dope name for our marketing tip type of stream that we do for the Open Media Agency, I will give you a prize that requires some sort of like content creating or something like that. We'll figure something out. But that's all I really got for today. We've been here for a minute. I had a great time, and I want to catch you guys on the other side. All right, guys. We'll holla.